Hi everybody, it's Mark from Northeast Bass Fishing. How you doing? I took some video the other day. I was out on the lake, a local lake near me, and I took my skeeter out to run it the day before, and I had an issue with my water pump that had gotten replaced last year and had to be worked on again. So I ran it down to my dealership and it got fixed. So I came back the next day and I started fishing. So here's the first fish of the day that I caught. The audio is okay. There wasn't a lot of wind. It's just really low. So I thought I would do a voiceover. And this is the first fish I caught on a jerkbait on the day. And everything I caught that I got in the boat was on a jerkbait. And this, it turned out, was the best fish of the day. And I think it's probably around 9:30, quarter to 10 in the morning. I drove the boat around a little bit, make sure everything was good, working good, and the motor was running great. Because I'm going to Lake Champlain this weekend, and I want everything to be working good. So this is the best smallie that I caught on the day. I didn't weigh the fish, but I would say he was probably around 3.5. My fishing eyes will tell you it's a 4-pounder, but I don't know. But it was a nice one. And I was just talking to some people who were there on the shoreline asking me about it, and I was just talking to them. But you don't hear the sound really great. So that was a nice smallie. That was the first one. That was on the Megabass Perch in the 110 plus 1. And what I used fishing that day was the 110 plus 1, the 110 plus 2 Megabass, and the Berkeley Stunna in just the regular 112. And they were all in the perch pattern. That seemed to be what they wanted. At least from my point of view, I tried some other colors, but perch was the only thing I get a bite on. So that was the first smallie that I got. I had dropped a smallie earlier than that on a blade bait. I caught him, but he got off. This is the second fish on that plus 1 again. And what I had to do was let it just sit, let it suspend. Throw the jerkbait out, give it a few twitches, get it down, and let it just sit there. And once I figured that out, I was starting to get some more bites. And if you notice, there's a little bit of chop on the water. Throughout the day, when there was some chop, I got some action. When it was dead calm, I wasn't getting much of anything really going on. I had about, after I catch this fish and maybe one other, I had about an hour, maybe hour and a half lull there where I got no bites at all. And the wind had totally stopped. It was dead calm. It was a nice day. But as far as catching them, it was tough. So that was a nice smallie. That was the first hook, which will make sense to you later that I got in my finger. But that was only just a quick poke from the hook and a little blood, but nothing too bad. But that was, I guess I should have known what was coming down the road. But you guys will see that later on one of the longer clips I have. But that was the second smallie, another decent one. I would say he might have been 2.25, 2.5. And they were finally starting to, and maybe as it was getting later in the day, the sun was out a little longer, they were starting to turn on. The water was only 50 when I got there. By the time I left, I think it was maybe 52 or 53. So the water is still chilly because the nights have been cold. So the water hasn't really had a chance to warm up. But that was another nice smallie there. And like I said, I didn't weigh any of these fish. I'm not going to, bother weighing them. Now here I had switched to the 110 plus 2 in the perch. I wanted to try, some of the deeper water. And you can see I got that chop back, so things were getting better. This fish nailed it. I thought this was a huge fish, maybe a northern. As it turns out, he's just like maybe a 2.25 pound smallie. But he bit on the perch, but the 110 Megabass 110 plus 2. So I was just letting it sit out there, and he waffled it hard. I thought it was a good fish, but then he gets up and he's just a nice keeper. You'll see him come in the boat here in a sec. But I really had to let that bait just sit there. Really just let it sit there. And right there I'm using, I had on one jerkbait setup on that FXR rod with that Ardent Sea-Force reel. This is my other setup that I had with the other Ardent, the Arrow reel with 8-pound fluoro. And that's just an Abu Garcia Veritas 7-foot medium rod there. I like to throw my jerkbaits on a spinning rod. You guys know like that. Now I catch this fish and everything is going okay, but you'll see what's going to happen here in a second. And so there's a little bit of a long clip, which you kind of see and you kind of don't, but I'll explain to you what's going on. Because I think I might have dropped a few F-bombs here at the end of this when trying to get the the bait out, I get one of those Megabass hooks in my one finger. It hasn't happened yet. I think it happens at the beginning of the other video, but that I've spliced together. But you'll see it in a second here. See, I've already got a band-aid on that one finger because I got hit with that one hook. But this wasn't even really from the fish moving. I was just trying to work the hook out, and it just hit my finger the right way and just went right in past the barb. And for you guys know jerkbait fishing, that can happen to you. There's 6 hooks on those jerkbaits with those trebles. And so this is when you can see I've got 2 hooks in the fish, and the back hook, the one hook is in my finger all the way to the barb. So I've got the fish pulling, and I'm like, well, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. I couldn't even move my hand to even reach to get my clipper. So I figured out how to do it. See, my hand is pretty much stuck to the fish because the fish is stuck to the bait. If I had those other 2 hooks out of the fish, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. So I finally, if this ever happens to you, it sucks. Don't panic. It's an easy fix, really, believe it or not, when you have a hook, in your finger or your leg or wherever I've had them. What I did is I got my snippers out and I snipped the hook off that was in me. So then I could, get the fish free and then do a little surgery on my finger. Now, the mistake I made is I think I don't know if I got it off yet. When I hold the fish up, I know I've got the hook out. But you can't really hear me too well. That's kind of why, another reason I did this overlay of audio, because you couldn't really hear me too good. When I'm away from the camera, the audio doesn't come out great. But I've got the front treble hook and the middle treble hook in the fish, and the rear treble hook in my finger. So I had to get my snippers out. I snipped the one barb off of the rear hook so that I could actually get the fish undone and get them back in the water. And then like I said, do a little surgery on myself. So right now I'm just working on trying to get that hook snipped. And the hardest thing I think was probably trying to get my snippers out. I didn't have my snippers out on the boat. So that was the hardest thing, was trying to maneuver my hands around to do that. But once I got it and I could get it off, then I could get the fish off. So I'll show you the fish here in a second. And it was a nice fish. Luckily, he wasn't thrashing around too much, or it really would have been painful. So decent smallie. And there's my finger with a hook in it. Now the kind of the mistake, but as it turned out, it wasn't really too bad, was I kind of cut it close to my finger and not closer up on the barb. So I didn't have a lot of barb left. So I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to get it out just myself, because usually if you can do like the braid trick and just give it a hard pull and you pull it right out, it works. And I mean, I've done it with pliers before when I've had them in. I just give them a hard pull, and this is what I had to do here. I had to get my needle nose out and just get the very end of that. There was just a little bit sticking out of my finger, and it was starting to really bleed a lot. So I didn't want to bleed all over the boat. So I was trying to hang my finger over the side of the boat here. And I'm thinking, if I can't get this out, I might have to go to the emergency room or to urgent care and get them to dig it out for me. But I thought I could get it, and luckily, there's my finger. It's starting to bleed a bit. So I cleaned it off in the lake. And as I said, you can't really see too well here, so that's why I'm kind of explaining it. All you see is the top of my head. But I'm just kind of cleaning my hand off. The blood has really it's getting pretty bloody, so I clean my hand off in the water. And then I got the needle nose out, and I could just get the end of the metal that was still sticking out of my finger. But I know you can't see it there, but the hook was in what I pulled out was in my hand there. I knew it was too small to see, and it was bleeding pretty good. So I cleaned it off, and cleaned it off, dried it off. So now I had a towel here I had to bring home and get washed because it had blood all over it. and tape it up. So now it's, or bandage it up. So that's why, like I said, always have that emergency kit in your boat, Band-Aids, because, especially when you're throwing a lot of treble hook bait. So that was my excitement. So now I'm back to fishing. I've got 2 Band-Aids on my fingers now. And here's the next fish coming up. And I had a bit of a lull there, and it had gotten really calm. So now it was starting to get a little bit of, it's a very little bit on the lake there. You can see there's just a little bit of chop was starting to come back again, and that kind of helps. Whenever it was dead calm, I wasn't getting any action at all. So here's another nice smallie. And soon, a little time before this, I was looking up and I saw a fish on the shore, and I went up there, and it was just a big northern, and I didn't throw any of my Megabass towards him. I didn't want him, to decide he wanted to eat. He was just sitting up there on the rocks in the sun, and I didn't want to entice him at all with a Megabass that I had tied on. So as you can see now, I'm using the net, and not just grabbing the fish in the water, at least on this one. So this is another smallie that I got in the boat. I did have a couple of smallies that followed, didn't eat, and this one was the one that really was, I think, was one of the cooler bites where I actually saw him come up and get it. So another nice chunk, that 2.5, 2.25. Like I said, I didn't weigh these fish. They weren't monsters, but they're all fun. They're all fun. So that was another smallie on the jerkbait. And I think I might have went back to the +1 there for a while, because I was throwing up towards the bank, trying to get that jerkbait to just kind of sit there next to those rocks and see if they'd come up and nail it. Because the suspend, really letting that bait just suspend was really the ticket. So if you find you're throwing your jerkbaits and you're not getting any action, or you're just getting follows, really slow down, let it sit. So I'd give it 3 or 4, and I just let it sit there. Just let it sit and suspend. Let it sit and suspend. Let them get a look at it, and then they come up and see that one hit it on that. This might be the one that I actually saw come up and nail it. I actually saw him come up, and he came flying from the right side, from the rear end of my boat, and just nailed that jerkbait. So you really gotta, sometimes, and that especially early in the season when the water's still chilly, really slow that jerkbait down. Get it down to the depth you want it. That +1 will go down, that 6, 7, 8 feet. And just let it sit there. I like to kind of get it down where I really can't see it, even though this water is real clear on this lake. So it's kind of hard not to see your bait. But when the bait just kind of gets out of view, and let it just sit down there, because even as clear as this water is, those fish are sitting right there. You don't even see them. You don't even see them when it's bright out like this. Here's another decent smallie. No hooks in my fingers on this one, which is good. So this one coming up, from what I remember, there's a lot of rock along this shoreline right here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but right straight out in front of the boat is a big rock that sticks up out of the water, which I always think I'm going to catch a fish off of, but I don't. But a lot of rock along that shoreline, so you can just imagine just looking at that shoreline going down into the water. That's kind of what it looks like. And you can see all rock through there and everything. And this fish must have, if I recall correctly, he must have flashed at my bait, because he was kind of hooked on his side. So he must have just kind of flashed at it and got too close and got a hook in him. So he kind of had he didn't really have it in the mouth. He had it kind of on his side. I don't know if you can see that in the video when I pull him up or not. I think I grab him before I bring him up. But he's a little guy. But another bite. So it was a good day. The fish were very scattered around, but they were biting. When that wind, we got a little bit of chop, getting near those rocks. There were smallies around. When I first got out, I got to a hump area, and there was just smallies everywhere swimming around, and I was throwing neds at them and jerkbaits. They wouldn't hit a thing. Here is my first. I'm now coming up the east bank of the lake, and this is my first largemouth of the day, which was a surprise. I thought it was going to be just one of those smallmouth only days. But this is the first largemouth I caught, and that was on the +2. So whenever I have the white rod there, that's the +2. The other rod I had the +1 on, or later on you'll see I'm using the Stunna, the Berkeley Stunna. But the way this fish was pulling, I thought it was a big fish. But the way he had the bait, he kind of had it like the front hook in his mouth, and the other two hooks were like across the top of his head and his neck. So it was kind of the way he was pulling made him feel bigger than he was. But it was nice to see some largies starting to bite at that point of the day, because it was all smallmouth so far. So here I'm going to guess it's probably around 2 o'clock. I think I got there like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I think it's probably around 2:30 at this point. And first largemouth of the day, little 2.25 pound fish. And whenever you see me do this, usually I'm just grabbing my phone and taking just a picture of him, not a video picture of him. But that was nice to finally get a largemouth, and it was getting pretty warm, and it got a little chillier, so I put my sweatshirt back on. I went back to that point where I caught that big smallie to start. I wanted to give it a try again. And like a couple casts in, I'm like, oh, here's one. So I'm thinking maybe it'll be another real big one, but it's not a monster, but it's a nice one. And here I am throwing. I switched and put the Berkeley Stunna on in the Perch color. I wanted to give that a try because I've done really well this spring with that Perch, the Berkeley Stunna Perch. So I wanted to try that here on this lake. And the first time I threw it, I caught one. And this section here, like where I'm sitting, is probably 15 or 20 feet, but it gets really shallow quick, and there's some big boulders on this point. Some real big boulders along like to the right of me and going out to the point there. So there's some really big rocks in the water. So it gets kind of shallow. So I figured I'd just put that regular diver on, not necessarily the +1 or the +2. And so, just a few casts in, catch a nice smallie on the Berkeley Stunna in the Perch color, which you'll see here in a sec. Nice fish. Another nice chunk. And then a couple minutes later, throwing on that point, throwing right up to that rock wall there, letting it sit, just letting it suspend down there. And the Berkeley Stunna does suspend well too. It's really a nice jerkbait that they did a nice job on at Berkeley. Caught a lot of fish on it this spring. I'm going to put that through its paces up on Champlain next week. So here is the final fish of the day that I get in the boat. Right off the point there, throwing up on the rocks. It's that FXR rod and that Arden Seaforce reel. That FXR, that's the first FXR rod I bought. It's really nice. So light. And you can see that another largemouth on the Berkeley Stunna. That's the 112. So that was it for the fish today. So here I give you guys a little, and the audio wasn't great. So I kind of just, I just figured I'd record over it. I was just kind of telling you about my day. And I figured I'd leave it in, even though you can't hear me talking, but it was a little muffled, so I figured I'd just record over it. And there's that +1 in the Megabass and the Perch pattern. Then I go to show you the +2, and of course the bait that harpooned me, I drop and it sticks into my sweats, which I guess was just the way it was going that day. So there's the +2 in that Perch. See that bigger bill? So that's a +2. Will get deeper for you. And then there's the Berkeley Stunna in also the Perch. So this was just me giving you a little recap of the day, which it's pretty much me telling you what I just told you guys. I had to throw that bait out, jerk it down to maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 feet. The +2, maybe 10. That +2 really gets down there, and just let it sit. Just let it sit. I think every bite I had came while the bait was suspended in the water. That was just the way they wanted it. And it was much like that when I went out the other day and fished the week before. So, early in the spring, that's the way it is a lot. You gotta let that bait suspend on the bottom. Let it just sit there and suspend. So that was the video, guys. And I'm just going to show you the baits quick again here, I think. But, that's that Megabass. There's that +2. There's that regular +1. And there's that Stunna. And see the pattern there. Perch all the way. Perch all the way. So that's the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I'll be heading up to Lake Champlain this week, so hopefully I'll have a lot of video from there. And I will see you guys soon on YouTube. Mark out. See you next time.